Racial nor ethnic lineage was never something highly discussed in my family, and it wasn't until adulthood that I explored further what I truly identified as. Hello, my name is Christopher Ruth, and this is my exploration of how I developed my understanding of my racial and ethnic expressions as I know them today. I currently understand and identify as a white male with mostly Irish heritage. The Irish part of my ethnic heritage was not discovered until well into my adulthood when my current wife bought me an ancestry kit. While her family can trace her roots and their roots back with carefully collected records and data, she always thought it was amazing that no one on my side could really do that as well, and none of us really knew where we came from. I was raised in a small rural town in Kentucky where my mother and grandparents helped us understand the, of course, unspoken race of being white, but really only identified our ethnic makeup by American growing up. My grandmother repeatedly told me and my cousins stories of having small percentages of Native American heritage somewhere back in the family tree. But it was more passed along as a family scandal story rather than an explanation or boast of some cultural heritage. As I discovered after completing my ancestry research, the story was entirely fictitious. There is no one in my family, from parents and grandparents on either side, that have ever paid any attention to this sort of identification other than the racial component, which is very limited by the skin color identifier. I have a half sister, but she has the same limited knowledge regarding what she inherited from her own mother. Through some conversation, she had told me a while ago that she had reached out to her mother, who she still doesn't have a lot of contact with, when she was about to have her son to get some medical history. And her mother was unable to provide most of the information that she was requesting, let alone anything more. As I mentioned before, my current wife's side of the family has always placed high value on maintaining very detailed family records. They know where their families immigrated from and when, how the spellings of names got changed at Ellis Island, and how new marriages changed the fabric of the ethnic makeup of the family, which is still largely German. I, to this day, have no idea what the immigration background of my family is, and doubt I ever will. Being raised in a family that placed little to no value on ethnicity, it was exciting to do the research and discover a part of me I didn't know was there as an adult. I have not really done much with the information or bought into the Irish stereotypes or anything like that, but it is a bit cool. It is cool. It is a cool bit of information to know something about generations long before myself, long before my family had come around. Race was not something that was ever really discussed outright, but definitely something that was ever present. I was raised in a town that still experienced at the time a fair amount of segregation and other racist undertones in many arenas of our ways of life. I don't think race was ever openly discussed because my grandparents played a huge role in my life growing up, and it was very much just the way things were for them. You were not supposed to talk about those things or question the way things were, or there were real, often physical consequences. They were very salt of the earth type people and were raised in a way of the traditional Old South and held those traditions to a fault. I was also raised knowing that we were what a large portion of the country referred to as poor white trash or rednecks, or there was a self-image and an identity that comes along with that. For me, joining the military and getting out of the small-minded, small-town mentality really gave me the perspective that life didn't have to be that way. I would say that on a daily basis, I am aware of my race and my ethnicity because the military in the last few years has shifted a lot of focus on awareness of equal opportunity and inclusivity objectives. Being a higher ranking white male, although I would never consciously say anything that would intentionally exclude or judge another, I feel that I must sometimes be hyper aware of the situations or rooms that I find myself in. It is not necessarily a bad awareness, but a necessary one. A few years ago, I had a member of one of my flights who was unhappy with a lot of things about his career. He targeted me and a few others within his leadership chain and hit us with an investigation of racism and unfair treatment due to several other factors. This individual targeted me because he knew that I was from the South and told the investigators that I had Confederate flags hanging in my office and had problems with him due to his race, all of which was disproven in the investigation, but still was hard to have aimed in my direction when having done nothing wrong to begin with. This specific experience has generally not been the norm, but it has happened. All of this is different from my mom because while I think she experienced adversity, it was more as a single mother fighting traditional gender roles rather than racial ones. My grandparents were never really aware of their ethnic or racial identities. It really only came up when they encountered someone different from their own. As far as inequalities in my own family, being raised very poor with next to no inherited wealth played a bigger part in any inequality we may have experienced. But I truly believe that joining the military provided me with a better life than I could have ever had staying in my hometown. In closing, I don't believe that I am defined by what I have defined myself as. I have been given the opportunity to see more of the world and experience more culture and lifestyles outside of my own than a lot of people. And I feel that in my travel um, and work, I have absorbed more than my collective identities um, that have brought me alone. Although it was a nicety to be able to identify my ethnic makeup and where my past generations immigrated from, I don't believe it really has had that big of an effect on my overall identity or how I experience life. I am sure that my race has had some effect on how I perceive myself and relate to the world around me. But unless I am at work, I try not to think about it or try to portray meaning behind it. My reality, I think, is probably one that is out of the ordinary because of the work that I do and the places that it has taken me. I feel that I have a more open-minded acceptance of the world as it is because of the places I have been and the people I have met along the way. I've seen the lines that people have drawn among each other and the way that they separate themselves based on who they perceive themselves to be. But I have also seen camaraderie and brotherhood and fellowship that bonds people over skin color or ethnic background. Common missions that unite people, and the excitement of sharing culture and ideas is so much more powerful than separation. I want my sons to grow up in a world that can see value in knowing the history, in knowing their history, but is more excited about the possibility and humanity. I think they will have a much easier time navigating the changes of our current system, making in the efforts of equality as they are growing up alongside it, rather than having to rewire thought processes or feel frustrated as change after change is made to instilled traditions like some people do as the world is changing now. I hope that they are able to have friends that teach them about their own races and ethnic identities without undertones of judgment or anger while still being able to celebrate their own. My advice to my boys and all the people listening is that no matter where you came from or how you were raised, change is possible, and doing better for yourself and others is possible as well.